caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
It's Halloween.
Yeah, I'm here. Happy Halloween. I made it another day on this planet Earth. It's actually steam coming off my coffee. I don't know if you'd be able to see that or not. Wherever the hell my coffee cup is. This camera's so weird. See that steam? Let's see. No. You can't see it, but it's there. Anyway, as I said before, good morning. Well, I didn't say that before, but as the sound effect said before.
It's Halloween.
And let's get into the whole thing.
And now, another Halloween safety tip. If you and your friends find yourself trapped in a mansion with a homicidal maniac,
We're trapped.
It is often helpful to split up.
Then let's split up.
Yeah.
Okay.
See ya.
Yeah.
On second thought, maybe you should stay together.
Oh, dude, that's f***ed up.
This has been a Halloween safety tip. Have a safe and happy holiday.
It's Halloween.
I wonder if you might help us. You see, our car broke down a few miles up the road. Your phone we might use?
Yeah, we might as well cycle through just about everything we have because this is it, Halloween, the build up, and then it's over. And then it's all over. Game over. Lava lamp. Game over. Title card's kind of interesting. Times have definitely changed for some, for some. But there's something a little homicidal about the father of that family. Or maybe it's the child that's like admiring the knife more than anything else. Future homicidal maniac. And of course, Lon Chaney's got his eyes on that. I made that yesterday afternoon. Just pulled some crap out of my archives. Man, do I have the stuff. Of course, I've said that before. The legendary white handkerchief. Next time you see me, I may look a little more like Groucho Marx. I think I'm going to, these spots on my mustache that just kind of don't look like or basically it's just salt and peppery stuff, but it's whatever. This is my painter's tar everything hat, which I didn't realize I was wearing. So I just left it on. It says I have 2 playbacks and the average watch time is 2 seconds. Now it says 1 playback. While I said that, it said there's 1 playback with the average watch time 1 second. So, in other words, is that an algorithm that's that sophisticated, right? Or is it that they got a human directly on this thing? I got a call yesterday. Is this such and such, I said, well, who's calling? Why? No, we need to know. Is this such and such or whatever? They're unsettling those calls because you don't know what the heck it is, and it's weird and it's bizarre, and it could be a collection call from something from 20 years ago that you paid off. Or it could just be one of these stupid, things. I get 2 calls every day about car insurance, and I don't drive. Anyway, some people have been asking. They've been saying, what happened to your grow room? Well, here's my grow room. I know the lighting on this looks really weird, but you have to understand I have grow lights on, so I adjusted the HUD E just to give you a little bit of more of the green, to try to remove some of the red that's like these grow bulbs are doing. That's catnip. Now, to you, it might look like it's growing pretty good, but the problem is there's only a couple of plants, and they're kind of like spread out and leggy. I mean, I'm really happy because I did not have catnip seeds. And so these were from things that I had culled, just like kind of found, around where my old catnip plant was. And fortunate enough, I was able to reseed them and get these plants to grow. But the cat loves this fresh catnip. So I'd love to give him a couple leaves a day because he eats it and it's fresh, and I guess it's good for them. I don't know. And but I really can't. I have to be like careful with it because, like I say, as congested and stuff as it looks, and I have been pulling every other day or so a couple of leaves off. I just wish it was a little more. There were more stems. They were less leggy. And I've been trying to take from the top so that the bottoms would be encouraged to, I don't know. Anyway, that's my grow room. And I'll show you, I have some other pictures, so we'll get back into some of our daily features. So one of the daily features is, yes, I do indoor gardening. And as we get into, the weather, it's still the weekend. It's Halloween weekend.
Weekend weather.
So let's take a look at the earth from thousands and thousands of feet up. Excuse me. This is the NOAA CONUS low Earth satellite orbit. And as you can see, again, as I said yesterday, it pretty much kind of looks the same. I mean, this mass of clouds has definitely moved a lot more northeast. It looks like there's something going on down by the Carolinas, like little new clouds or whatever. I don't know if those clouds are heading to Florida or not. The mystery state, which is Mississippi, I believe, has got some clouds now. And there's some normally looking clouds over in the western part of the country, former United States. And I see in Tahoe, the lake has got its water back. It was like dry, and now suddenly it's got its water back. This weird thing that's happened. The Great Lakes are kind of clearing up. There's in the state of Pennsylvania, there's a major fog warning, I guess because of all the rain they've been getting in the central, mainly the whole central to the heading towards the eastern part of the state. And the rest of the country is somewhat clear, though there's still expected to be rain, particularly as you can see in the northeast. And there is that kind of like curl, a giant curl that goes all the way down, to the Caribbean, works its way up to Newfoundland, more or less. And I don't, and so there is some activity there. And I'm not sure the barometric pressure, but, it's low enough that, we did have strong winds before, but I think in most parts of the U.S. we're not expecting those heavy-duty crazy winds that had plagued certain regions over the past couple of days. So anyway, that's a look at your
Weekend weather.
Now, while we're talking weekend weather, put this up as a news item. If you haven't been watching, the live coverage of La Palma, I got this right, from their website, from a Spanish website in English. But the kind of funny thing here is that I had to add the over 35,000 earthquakes and tremors recorded in La Palma over the past month. That got cut off the bottom, so I put it up to the top. But the funny one here is CBS News published incorrect graphics suggesting La Palma, an island, was on mainland Spain. Do you see what I mean about mainstream media in the U.S.? I mean, now they've got people there. Not only do they not know the geography of their own country, not only do they not know history of their own country, but they've got these people, these kids working for them. And I say kids, and I mean a 40-year-old kids, because this is the Peter Pan culture. And I can't go easy on any of these soy boys and pink hairs and these Peter Pan, dumb fucks. All right. You ruined your show. You had to say it. You had to say dumb fuck. No, because they are dumb fucks, and they've ruined the country. Like they ruined everything. Right? They ruined everything. So suggesting La Palma was an island. La Palma, which is an island, by the way, out in the Atlantic, off the coast, was on the mainland Spain. And that somehow, see how it got past their editors. You see, it's funny. And so a Spanish website has to correct that. But yeah, over 35,000 earthquakes, and I believe there was a 5-point something or other yesterday. So it's not calming down. It's pretty scary. And there's a lot of watches at some of the volcanoes up in, we have the whole Alaskan chain, the old, what some people say was a land bridge that connected, us with Russia, whatever. That whole volcanic chain, there's a lot of activity starting to tick up there, potential. So they're keeping a close eye on that. And today, or at some point, we've been hit or will be hit with this X-class flare. So it'll be just adding more insult to injury, but much of it we won't know about. I mean, there's a possibility there could be a power grid down here or there, some communications taken out here or there. Get it while it's hot, because it sure doesn't stay hot long. But this isn't, even though it's an X class, this is not the killer, like what we talk about, the Carrington event, that's going to, that in the past had taken down. Well, if a similar event occurred today, it would pretty much take down the entire grid. We'd be, that end of story. And a lot of these Peter Pan, soy boys, pink hairs, people who write things with magic markers on pieces of cardboard and hold up with sticks and we want this, we're idiots, we're morons, we went to college, but we didn't learn anything but revisionist history. We're dope heads, And one other way of looking at what I just did, I'm looking at it in the feedback, is holding the sign up like this. They're also, circle jerks. But anyway, yeah, people are clueless. Totally clueless. So, that's a reason for you to be afraid, be very afraid. As I have this thing here. And how it keeps shrinking down. It's gotten very light in the background, but it's still there. So I guess it will be the last day we burn the candle. And I have my iPhone plugged in, and for some reason, you don't see it, but I get this red line across. So it's I just wanted to charge the thing because it's at 92%. And I always like to keep the thing at 100% because it's older, but I'm going to have to take it out. Yep, there goes, get rid of the red thing. So let's go through some of the normal things. What's our daily photo today? That's our daily photo. That makes sense. Yeah, so it's
It's Halloween.
All the crazies are out because.
It's Halloween.
And we'll get back to that. I kind of like the skull and the candle. It's kind of like sets the mood or better. It's 6:23 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We're only about a week away from when we set the clocks back to standard time, or is that daylight savings time? I don't know. All I know is the whole thing's ridiculous, right? What does it matter? And for me, I prefer it dark. I don't want, it's like, we are children of the night. And as you get older, it's nice when the night comes earlier and the night lasts longer. It's, as I said, Halloween, October 31st. Where September just seemed to zip by like crazy. This month kind of like lasted fairly long. I saw my psycho neighbor and her crazy daughter, who's like scary. Talk about scary. They were on a ladder chopping a part of a tree from my yard that like happens to tip over, that goes up high, but like tips over a little bit onto their side. And I was watching Dune, actually, the new Dune, right? Which was, was interesting. I got into it, and the more you got into it, it started a little slow, but the more you got into it, it was getting cool. But, it's like part 1 or something. Now, I'm not sure. I didn't read up on it, and you may know more than I do. But they're streaming it on, like I have the HBO Max deal. I went and did it. It's like cheap for like 6 months. I think you can cancel out. I might get caught into trap of it or something. I hope I don't. But it's like cheap until March. I think I can cancel out, but maybe they'll like charge me full price or something. I love those things that when you cancel out, you cancel, but they make you pay for the year. But you don't have the service because you canceled. So the question, so why don't they just say you can't cancel? Right? You could really see my scrubby beard right now. I'm debating on whether or not either to trim it down or cut it off. It's kind of making the face look a little bit like fat. Not that I care about any of that stuff anymore. But you know what I mean? That's just another one of those goofy things. There's so many goofy, idiotic things, right, that people don't do do anything about. I think, see, to me, it would be so nice that I'm one of these, like, it's like this thing I remember in grade school, some tale. It was some Grecian urn tale, old Greek tale, about this bird. There was some water in the bottom of a Grecian urn. And so all these birds were thirsty and dying of thirst, and I guess they died of thirst or something. But one bird picked up a pebble and put it in the urn, then picked up another pebble and put it in the urn, then picked up another pebble and put it in the urn, and did that until there was enough pebbles in there that raised the water level high enough that the bird was able to take a drink. Okay? And, it's funny. I remember that as a child. I'm talking child, like, geez, this was first or second grade. That story was read. But how certain things have influences on the rest of your life, and And not only did I remember it now, I'm pouring coffee. Get it while it's hot. More hot, please. Hey, Mabel. I mean, you got to know if you name your daughter Mabel, she's going to end up working in a diner. If they still have diners and, by the time she'd grow up. But, that's like one of those classic tales. And, the stuff they used to teach in school or tell in school. Maybe I heard it in kindergarten, story time or something. But it stuck with me all these years. And it made an impact on that moldable brain. Instead of this crazy stuff today where they're taking kindergartens, preschoolers and stuff and telling them, the South and, the U.S. is bad. You're part of a bad. It's like you're not part of anything. You are what you are. Today is today. Live in the present. You're not responsible for something that somebody else did. Some British people that we actually fought against and won. We didn't do anything, right? Most Americans today living in this country, we had nothing to do with anything that happened 400 years ago, 200 years ago, or during the Civil War, because most of us came in the late 1800s, around the turn of the last century. That's where most people came. And we have nothing to do with slavery. We have nothing to do with, any kind of anything. Right? And they teach us revisionist history. What is it? The 16 something or other project or something like that. It's like, teach that over in England, call all the children. Any children here have heritage, British heritage, Dutch British heritage, or African heritage, because the Africans were selling the slaves, were selling Africans to the British and Dutch trading companies. Or does anyone have heritage, of certain religion in the Middle East? That came along, that is also that we've been fighting those people, they're terrorists from that religion for years, for radicals from that for years now. You people, please come in this other room and we're going to teach you this thing called the 16 something project. The rest of you people, since your relatives and your ancestors weren't even here until the late 1800s, turn of the century, you got nothing to learn and nothing to deal with because it has nothing to do with you or the countries you even came from. I get so tired of that stuff, right? They don't tell people that. It's like that thing, CBS News. They thought La Palma was in Spain, the country. That's pitiful, man. See, for them, if some idiot like me made that mistake, big deal. Next day I'd say, "Oh yeah, hey, I screwed up," because I'm not somebody that millions of people are watching and are taking, and are making life decisions based on stuff. It's like when they give these false news reports every day, right? Or ill-informed reports, right? It doesn't matter. YouTubers, that's why I have to laugh when YouTube even censors people, because it's like they should be censoring CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, and all, Fox, CNBC, all, BBC, all those places, because they have a higher collection. It's like the FDA should be kicked off the internet, should have their site taken down. Think about how many drugs the FDA approved that when you turn on, speaking of TV, that now there are lawsuits against. I've talked about this in the past so many times, right? How many times have you seen, if you use the drug such and such and such and such, please contact the law of such and such law firm of such and such and such and such, because, right, if you incurred damage, you're eligible for damages or, financial rewards. They are the most unreputable organization in the history of the world, probably. You know what I mean? Because I've been seeing those kind of lawsuit commercials since I was a kid, which basically means that I would say the vast majority of drugs that the FDA approves, obviously, there are lawsuits against. Which means, so what the heck are those people doing over there? So they should have their website taken down, right? Not some person that makes a mistake or has a slip of the tongue or doesn't know something or whatever. Who cares? They're just an average Joe, right? So what? This is a morning vlog. I'm just a guy. This is under people and blogs, right? This is my morning show, right? I do have a mug for it, though. The morning show with Tony C. You could get a mug. Or you could get a ROCKFLUX thing, go full out. That stuff gets me so worked up. I don't know. I was an hour late. I slept till 5. I was supposed to get up at 4 because that's when I'm scheduled to take my amoxicillin thing for the tooth. I found a couple of other dentists. I called this health place, but I don't know. I have to wait till Monday or so to see if these people still exist or are real. One of the places I found, when I called them, they found, we're closed due to some kind of emergency thing until further notice, indefinitely closed or something. They don't exist. But yeah, so I was an hour late taking that pill. But took my breakfast almost an hour afterwards. At this point, I really don't care. I don't know. I'm not 100%. Life is what it is. It's Halloween, It's crazy.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those shows. So speaking of that, but I mean, yeah, this is just an example. Yesterday we talked about earth changes, and this is just an example. I mean, some crazy stuff. This thing has destroyed 2,500 plus buildings. All right. 35,000 earthquakes, and they had the strongest one, I think, yesterday, if I'm not correct. Yesterday was like the strongest, and this has been going on for well over a month now. The thing's shooting up like a jet, And, and there's concerns about the air quality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, the daily photo. Music-wise, I don't have a theme for this. Like I said, I have to develop one, I guess. But, I mean, I have my old liners.
It's the best. New. Real. Cool. Rockin' your world radio station with more rockin'.
That's one of those quasar via tattoo, things, right?
Attention, people of Earth, I have an important announcement to make.
I could use that for this. Anyway, this is Elton John. That's Elton John sitting. If you look very closely at this picture, I could enlarge it slightly. If you look very closely, you'll see him sitting to the edge of the bench. This is old Elton John. This is early Elton John, Bernie Taupin, Tumbleweed Connection. And it all has this feel of like, it's the sepia. The whole idea of the sepia cover. They're getting back into the beauty of albums, album cover art. Yeah, it's one of those things about pop culture that we've lost, See, what I never understood is, and I was going to do it myself, but a big deal. It wouldn't have mattered because I don't have widespread distribution like that. But, I thought that they should have kept the album covers big, even when CDs came out, right? And had the CDs like in a flap inside or something like that. And then I thought, and like I say, I know like there's people you can get vinyl now, and a lot of people who, the bigger bands, people that can afford it, they're putting their records out in vinyl. There are people who can't afford it or doing it. Like I might do it if I ever would get enough to have spare cash to do it, but I'm so far in a hole right now, it's like, I don't know how to dig out of it. But I had this idea of like a thumb drive of taking an album cover, and I've made these things, and I've got them buried. It pisses me off, that I talked about it the other day, and I should have pulled one out. But you see that, I said it, the thing behind the word "be afraid." You see how it's, it's like this. It's the classic image of me that's on the shirt. Tony Caravan, 21st Century Beat Poet, if you can't read it. And it's an album cover, album size graphic. Well, that's what it was made for, okay? And my idea was that I would take that, make an album, cardboard, have it printed on heavy cardboard, and have a thumb drive, right? And you could even get locked thumb drive. Well, you could like lock files. There's all kinds of weird stuff you could do. I mean, people could crack it, the right people, if they wanted to. But I mean, generally speaking, you could make it so it's like somebody could put it onto their computer, but it's theirs and they can't really share it or something. So, I mean, if somebody wanted to be like, worry about somebody just free distributing your music, the whole, the big fear of the record companies who are making more money than ever before since file sharing has become possible. Be that as it may, I thought that it would be neat to have it like bubble wrapped, shrink wrapped, in effect, not bubble wrapped, but shrink wrapped to this piece of cardboard. And there would be a punch out in the cardboard that would fit this thing in, so the thing wouldn't be like moving around or being weird. You see? They would have some kind of what's called in the printing business a die. It's called that in other industries too, manufacturing industry. So there'd be this punch out the size of this, like it wouldn't necessarily even be a thumb drive. It would just be some kind of USB thing. Right? It could even be just a circle, which would be a cool idea now that I think about this off the top of my head. It would be round, like a mini record, but real tiny, but it would have like the USB thing on it. And that would be punched out, and then the whole thing would be shrink wrapped into the record, right? And on the back of it, it could be just somehow attached so that like people couldn't go in the store and just pull the thing out of the plastic, or something. These things we can figure out. Okay. These are manufacturer. These are things for problem solvers who do this kind of stuff, and industrial designer guys like me, Johnny Ive could figure something out. But anyway, then you would have the albums back. And so you could have the lyric sheet. You could have some albums used to have a fold-out poster of the band, or just some really cool fold-out psychedelic poster or something. I mean, the idea that for the sake of, the whole CD movement, which is now practically dead, all right? Like I told you, I had, had my CDs, wherever it is. I only have 2 of these shrink wrap CDs left that I got through when Amazon had music on demand service. Okay. And these are classic CDs and they're legitimate. It's the real frickin' thing. Okay. But, now they're like weird collector's items, for a guy who's a legend in his own mind. You know, it's kind of crazy. But, you know, this is an interesting little, you know, tidbit, things to talk about. You know, the CD was only created because people had music collections and they wanted people to rebuy their music collection. Because ask any of the, like, you know, musicologists or the you know, real tech music techs, you know, music tech heads, you know, the people who have the styluses, you know, and the real, you know, vinyl, are still collecting vinyl and getting some of these new vinyl records that are being made and stuff. Ask them about the quality of vinyl versus CD. You know, I didn't know. I had Steve Forbert at, if you know who he is, I should feature. That's another guy. I have to write that down. Feature him as an album maybe tomorrow. I've just got to put a picture. Forbert photo. LP. It's so much stuff to do. These shows aren't easy to put together. You know, you got to like cull together all these graphics and stuff. No, it's not that easy, right? And it's a pain in the ass to do it every day for the entire year, you know, for 2 hours almost. But anyway, you know, he, for example, when I did this a show had him at a, you know, concert when I was managing a radio station. And so, you know, after the show, I was talking to him. We were taking some pictures backstage, and, you know, he gave me a CD, signed a CD, gave me a CD. He said, but he wanted to give me a CD. And he's like, and he goes, wait, let me, and he said, he had like this stack of CDs that he said, this is a better one. Like somehow the way it was pressed or something. And I take his word for it. I mean, he was, you know, Steve Forbert, he's a cool dude. No reason to like make it up. And I wasn't buying it from him. He was just giving it to me. But, you know, there are some CDs, I guess, that are pressed a certain way. And I'll tell you, the one he gave me does seem like louder. Like, you know, like when I say loud, I mean like everything's, the presence or whatever, everything is like up closer. If you understand that audio wise, right? You know, it's not like turning up the volume. It's like at any volume, it's just everything's like more there, you know? So he was right. But that's not really the way it is. And, you know, today, you know, cars go by and you hear this boom, 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 boom. And the glass on my windows is shaking in the house. So it's like here, you know, I mean, they may have some great studios and some, you know, incredible equipment, digital equipment to make these songs these days, but it's all wasted on the bass and the drum, right? Boom, 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 right? Even that's probably annoying to you. But I mean, I understand for dancing and some club scene and people, you know, these girls with their hands. What's this with like girls? You ever see girls always have their hands up in the air when they're dancing? You know, what the hell's that all about? That's kind of weird. I always thought that was weird. Yeah, hands up in the air. Or like John Travolta, you know, my voice assistant just said something in the other room. What was that? Alexa, did you just say something? All right. Alexa, repeat the last thing you said. No. That was weird. Voice assistants are weird. See, that's why I whispered before when I was talking about that in previous shows. Because I have one in the other room. I heard it like saying something. And what's spooky, you know, about this whole thing.
It's Halloween.
My whole house is dark. It's early in the morning. I've written a horror story that takes place in this house. She's talking in the other room. I ask her what she said, and then she says, "You can always ask me to repeat the last thing I said." And when I asked her to repeat the last thing she said she didn't say anything. But she clearly said something. Isn't that freaky?
It's Halloween.
So anyway, back to this story. Or some people make these like faces like they're in pain when they dance. So it's like hands held high, or it's like they're being, hit or getting it up the you know where. But back to Tumbleweed Connection. This whole sepia, if you don't know what sepia is, it's that retro, it's a colorization used to show things are retro, right? There was like old faded, type of thing. So choosing that was great because this album is unlike any Elton John album you've ever heard. Just like kind of Madman Across the Water is too, which I was going to feature, but it's like, how many of them can you feature? I don't want to feature too many by one artist. Excuse me. Some phlegm in my throat. Who knows? Life. What a beautiful choice, right? But if you've never heard Tumbleweed Connection, and if you're not an Elton John, let's face it, anything Elton John's done in the last 15 years is 20 years or more is as crappy as most pop music from 20 years or more. Okay, music's dead. Now it's not to say that there aren't these independent bands or some bands that do get signed to some labels, that still have somebody who some A&R guy who's like still thinks he's Mr. Cool, and he'll sign a band just to make themselves seem legitimate or legit, as they say. But the fact of the matter is, it's the same 16 producers using the same 16 songwriters. And it doesn't matter if it's country, rock, hip hop, dance, club, you know what I mean, R&B. It's all the same old shit, right? It's the same old shit, and the same old songwriters, same old producers, right? And they use all these things that, mess with your voice, voice tuner, auto tune, and all that weird stuff. Every song, and it's the same beats. It's like George Harrison got like fined for saying that his song "My Sweet Lord" was like a copy of of a Shirelles song or something. Which, like, they were so far apart that forget it, And yet you listen to the radio, you turn on the radio now, and there'll be something. Country radio song sounds like some pop rock song, sounds like something you're going to hear on an R&B station, and something you're going to hear on a some club in a club mix, by a different band. And you don't see any lawsuits there because it's the same 16 producers, 16 songwriters. If there's that many, it's probably a dozen at best. it's just a formula they have, and it's been going on for 20 years, 20 fucking years, right? Digital music destroyed the variety. It's like this thing.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
And that's what that thing was originally designed, because this coffee's getting cooler. So I had to get it out of that carafe. Well, before it gets too.
It's Halloween.
But I think that's an old K-Rock thing, the idea of variety of music. And you just don't have it, like I say. There's exceptions to every rule, and there's great exceptions to every rule, right? But that's why they're exceptions. Because the word exception is the root of exceptional, right? The word exceptional. So yes, you will find exceptional music out there, but it's an exception to the rule. But so anyway, the vinyl, how I started this whole thing, and the show's not going to be completely about this, but what the heck. And we had our little Halloween weirdness happen too, which is weird. Anyone who's worth their salt, which is a pretty crazy phrase, who has a music ear, good music collection, knows it, knows music and knows sound, will tell you that, if you have a classic vinyl, player, stylus player, tied into a really good, a stereo system, right? Not these things like today, not earbuds, right? Or whatever. Or some something that's hooked up to some Bluetooth speaker or something, right? That, and then you've got these loudspeakers, with a woofer, a tweeter, mid-range, and a tweeter on it, right? I have such a system in my upstairs bedroom. That's one of the reasons why I don't like moving from that, because I've got that place like wired for sound, and my chair is where it should be and all that stuff. But I don't know. Depends on what happens with this roof. But if you ask anybody else who knows that, and there's, lots of people, mainly the wealthy, because it's an music has, good quality music has become something for the rich, only. The average person, unless you're an electronics, guy, a geek, electronics geek, somebody who knows how to mess with wires and knows what stuff is and looks for stuff and buys stuff on, various sites. eBay used to have tons of stuff like that. I don't know if it still does. I haven't been on eBay. In fact, I got a thing from eBay a while back. Like I might already be off eBay. They said you haven't used your account in 2 years or so many years that we're going to close your account. So they might have closed my account. But I don't have the money, to go buying stuff. But, Craigslist, I guess. And then there's these other apps that people have. But those are kind of dangerous, because, like, those are the ones where, like, people come to your house to grab the stuff or something. It's like, that's one instance where, having the government and big tech know your business, the fact that there's no privacy, that's one thing, right? That's been going on forever. Deal with it, accept it. You could try to pretend, you could make pay these companies VPNs and all these people to try to pretend you're somebody or somewhere else and all that stuff, if it makes you feel good. But giving your dress out to somebody, that's idiotic. To a person, But anyway, that's the only place, other than you either have to be very wealthy, have a lot of money to buy this high-end equipment new, right? Or you have to be somebody that just goes and really hunts it down and finds it and then knows how to rig it up and maybe fix something. And, and like I say, if you need a new stylus, for a turntable or something like that, that's like, it's not just, mix and match, So it's useless to buy yourself some, say a cheap turntable someplace. But the question is, can you get the right cartridge and stylus that you could actually get that high fidelity sound out of that vinyl? Now, assuming that whatever it is, whether or not you're wealthy enough to afford the high-end real thing, or if you're just a music geek and electronics, wiring type of guy like me, I got my house wired with wired for sound all over the place. Then, then you can really experience. You'll know the difference between digital CDs, and vinyl. And you'll know the difference between a stereo amplifier, like a Pioneer, Harman Kardon, or, some kind of classic big thing, right? As opposed to some miniature, thing. It all has to do with it's like the processing of the sound, And a lot of people, like I say, when you get this boom, 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 okay, this handles the bass really well, Okay, that's cool, okay, you got speakers that handle the bass really well and they don't blow out, If you tried playing music that's been made in the last 10 or 20 years on a sound system in a car that, say you had an old Mustang with the original sound system in it or something, and you put it, that in there in one of those things, you'd what they call blow out your speakers, because those speakers weren't made to handle those low frequencies, driving that much, like constant boom, 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 They could handle a couple of boom booms, right? But not, that constant, pushing back and forth. I mean, it's a magnet. If a speaker is basically a circle, you got this circular magnet, and there's this paper usually, it's like and there's this coiled wire, all right, and it's vibrating. That through it's an electromagnetic thing, really, though the magnet itself doesn't require electricity. In the old days it did, in the original speakers, right? But it's an electromagnetic process, and so it's a conversion, and this coiled wire basically moves through the audio signal and the magnet. And it's kind of circular around, and it just vibrates that piece of cardboard, that paper. It's like construction paper almost. That's what it's like. It's weird. And it vibrates that, and that's how you get the sound. It's air. It's pushing the air, because that's all sound is, right? You could actually feel the air, like when you're at a concert. I've put in speakers at concerts and stuff. If you can actually feel the sound coming out of it. You could feel the sound. It's pushing it, and the vibration, and it vibrates in your bones like going to a NASCAR thing. I'm going to do a striptease live on the air. It's getting too hot in here. I have this Hawaiian shirt over top of a long sleeve shirt. It's a classic. Used to be one of my favorite drinking shirts. And I don't really have anybody to drink with anymore. And then a while back, I was like starting to just like have a couple of beers at my bar and listening to music and stuff because it's one of my favorite things. But I got old, you know, just doing it, you know, just being there by yourself and stuff. I have to admit, life isn't as fun as it used to be for me. And it's probably one of the reasons I do this. I think I was telling somebody the other day, and I think I might have mentioned it on this show. But I think one of the reasons I do this is because I don't really have the outlet of people to talk to, you know, like I used to. And so I'm talking to myself, in effect. You know, and I watch these things back. Yeah, it's sad in one way, but it's not sad and it's not like I'm not a depressed person. I'm just not exactly, you know, rambunctiously, you know, overjoyed, put it that way, you know.
It's Halloween.
Yeah.
I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello. That one we might be able to keep after Halloween. My chair just fell down again. See, like, reminds me of one of my songs. What's it called? Yeah. Well, my Club Mix song. See that? See, like in that song, for example, you know, that would be like the bass. That would really push it. But no, what I was thinking of is this song. I mean, that song's hard to sit still for. That was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite songs while I was recording it. You know, I was having it was laying down the rhythm track. You know, because I'd like laid down those tracks one by one. I played all the instruments, and that was a trip. I mean, you know, by the time I was got into the vocals of it, it was like I was it was a real groove. There's a lot of instrumentation going on in that. I mean, I'll get a hit for that, you know. Yeah, they give me copyright strikes for my own music. Figure that one out.
It's Halloween.
Yeah, it's Halloween. It's also...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
But anyway, back to Tumbleweed Connection, because we got on like a bunch of tangents. So not only did they take away the album, I don't know why this album out of other albums reminds me of that, but you know, it's like one more thing they took away. And I mean they being these corporatists, this corporatocracy, right? It's just basically, you know, they're profiteers for the sake of, like, they're not capitalists. They're what they call crony capitalists, or, it's not competition, like traditional, the concept of capitalism as opposed to communism or socialism, was the idea of competition, free markets, right? And that those that performed the best, did the best, won and made the most, made the most money. It was like a game, if you played, you were the best player, you win, right? That type of thing, right? And what's going on now under this corporatocracy, with big tech, big pharma, big data, big media, the military contractors, the central banking system, the World Economic Forum, all this kind of crap, right? It's like they got the games rigged because they control everything and nobody else can play. You know what I mean? So you can be, you either adapt to our thing that we decide is the thing, or fuck you, is what they're saying. And and we do whatever we do so we could make more billions of dollars. And we don't really care about all these things that we push, like climate crisis and all that stuff. That's just to torment you and keep you in line, It's like I was watching this thing where they were talking about yesterday. It was like some guy was trying to talk about how Apple, like Tim Cook and Facebook, Zuckerberg and Cook, in the 90s they used to pit Bill Gates and Steve Jobs together, like they, against each other, like this was the worst, right? And now they're doing Apple versus Facebook, which is now what? Meta or Metaverse, right? So, and they were trying to make it justify it, like as if this guy was trying to justify like as if Apple was better than Facebook in a sense because Apple was pushing privacy and that was causing conflicts with Facebook's app that basically Facebook was in the business of selling your data, and is run by a guy who looks like data. And Apple was trying to preserve your privacy and they didn't sell your stuff. But it was really hogwash because it's half truth. It's a half truth. Because Apple knows everything, and they have all your data. It's just that they want to use it for their purposes. All right. Apple's $1 trillion company, right? It's a ridiculous amount of money. And the iPhone, and they keep pushing this iPhone out, and all they do is, the only real innovations on the new iPhone is just like, it's a camera. And then apps related to utilizing that camera, like having these FaceTime parties, I'm sorry, not Facebook, because they don't, And, and some, and yeah, the A1 chip is cool and all that shit, But it's an integrated of their own devices. That's the whole thing. They want to integrate, they want you to live in the Apple universe. And in effect, Facebook or Meta wants you to live in their metaverse. Okay? That's like the thing. This is an interesting thing to say. But anyway, I just want to get this. I'll take this tumbleweed thing off here to finish up with that. If you don't like Elton John, it doesn't matter. Tumbleweed Connection, like many of the albums that I featured on this show, this is a different time, different sound, different thing. You know what I mean? It's like no other. It's like you're in Jesse James time. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you lay down, you put your good set of headphones on, real headphones, I mean, you know, that's another thing that pisses me off. You know, like those Beat headphones and these Bose things, they cost hundreds of dollars to get these classic headphones. You know, forget about earbuds and stuff like that. And so otherwise have a good sound system and be situated in the middle. But it'd be, the ideal would be if you had a really good set of headphones and you're laying down on like a chair or a sofa, close your eyes, put on this entire album, right? And you'll be close your eyes, you'll be taken back to, like, you know, the frontier of America, Wild West type of thing. It's really weird. It's a different thing, and there's a couple of really interesting tracks on there. Check it out. Tumbleweed Connection, Elton John. It's totally different sound. You know, it's like I say, it's like no other. Kind of like Madman Across the Water, which I would like to feature, but since I featured this, maybe sometime in the future we'll talk about that one. But you know, the song on there, My Father's Gun. You know what I mean? It's literally that it's in the lyrics even are into that whole era of this Wild West type of stuff. You know? From this day forward, I wear my father's gun. You know, it's real interesting stuff, you know? Yeah. Check it out. Tumbleweed Connection, Elton John. And it's a pity you can't listen to it on an album. But, you know, like I was trying to say, though, you know, just following that back into this idea of these corporatists that aren't, you know, so it's like, yeah, capitalism's great, you know, the idea of playing a game and doing something, you know, the best man wins or woman wins. Yeah, great. Right? But that's not what it was. You know, it's like they got the game rigged because you can't play. Right? Yeah, you're not going to start the new Facebook, man. All right? You know, you're not going to start, you two guys in a garage aren't going to come up with the next, you know, big .com. All right? You know, half the VCs have all left Silicon Valley and stuff. You know, it's not the same as it was. You know, it's just not the same. And I know, because I used to live out in California when all that shit was going on. And I used to go up, I went up to San Francisco. I used to go to the Apple event. I used to go to the Vegas, the CES, the computer, you know, the big computer conferences in Vegas. You know, all around that time when the stuff was just happening. This is like the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. Right? When all these companies were coming together, you know, it's like I saw Steve Jobs, you know, I saw these guys, you know, and it's like, and, you know, and I was at the booths talking to people who later became, you know, the billionaires. Yeah. And, you know, it was just, I don't know. It's not, you can't do that today. I mean, are there startups that somehow pull through here and there? Yeah, you don't know the full story about it, you know. But I'll tell you what, it's, you know, it gets back to that exception, not the rule. So yeah, there might be somebody, but, you know, to live on a promise, it's like the American dream. The American dream is dead, all right? I mean, that's a fact. But are there some people that basically still benefit from the so-called American dream? Yeah, there's exceptions to the rules. You know, I always say all the time on this show, I'm generalizing, right? You know, even me, my life here, you know, I found a way to live, you know, with my technology, you know, at a poverty level almost. You know, and despite all the hardships and the insanity and the surrealistic nightmare that I'm going through, I still managed to get by and to, you know, it's not bad. Plus, you know, besides, I still have a good life, a very successful life to look back on that I've, and my accomplishments. I mean, I got my 10 books that I wrote, my 50 songs. I got that. And even the legacy of these shows, we're up to like, I don't know, well over 300 shows now, 2-hour shows. Think about that. That's an incredible amount of it's like 300 movies, documentaries, whatever, it's craziness. Because this isn't like I'm interviewing somebody, some political game, some Joe Rogan-ish type of thing or something like that, whatever. I'm no YouTube millionaire. I don't make any money on this. I'm unmonetized and all that shit. And I'm giving you these real life stories. And it's like I say, it's a true 30 frames per second. So I don't know, but let's not forget. Let's not forget. It's Halloween. So yeah, we lost that. And we lost the LP. And these guys took that away from us because they wanted to make a buck on the CD. Then they took the CD away, and now everybody's had to change. And just when you replaced all your vinyl with CDs, then the iPod comes out, and you have to replace all your CDs songs with digital versions. And and Apple, for all, I was talking about Apple versus the Meta, okay, this Facebook thing, which I want to get into a little bit on that. But it's like what Apple's done is that I have an old G5 over here. That's where these sound effects are coming from. So when you hear, that's from a G5. It's an older computer, and that's playing through an iTunes, the old iTunes. All right. And I had set up, I had an email, I had an Earthlink account. All right. Because I was on the internet before anybody knew there was an internet. I mean, people out in the West Coast, everything at that time, everything happened on the West. And then it took like a year or two, sometimes more, till it like migrated over to the East. That's the way it was. Like when I came back, I left the West Coast in the early 90s, I think. I forget the exact thing, but I came back east. My family's from the East and stuff, and I went back to my hometown. And I, and then it's a whole other story, and I got involved in different things there. And publishing, managed a radio station, had an art gallery, was on a council of the arts and stuff. I mean, everywhere I went, I always got involved in so many freaking things. It was ridiculous, right? Became the big cheese, became known. I was a guy who was known, But anyway, I brought with me the thing that helped me get started was my family had a printing business back east, and they were still using technology. The West Coast technology, desktop publishing, hadn't really moved, happened in the East yet. So I came in and I had to and I'm telling them, I'm saying, hey, look, we could get this computer, we could get these fonts, we could get this software, we can get this printer. In fact, at the time, the first printer I got them was because I talked to the guy who owned the company at one of these, it was either in San Francisco or Vegas, trying to think of the name of it. I think it was Laser Max. They had a 1200 DPI laser printer. Now, originally when printers came out after dot matrix, which was a joke, you had 300 DPI. And then some came out. Then there was some that were pushing 600 DPI. Now, 300 DPI was fine for type in a letter. It was clean and crisp type for a letter. If somebody wanted to make a flyer or some simple thing. But for anything with images, or it was better than dot matrix, but it was, it wasn't right. It was fuzzy, or it just wasn't crisp. 600 DPI was a hell of a lot better. But LaserMax technology was a laser printer. In other words, just took a laser cartridge. And it was 1200 DPI. Later on, you would get 2400 DPI and stuff from machines that you had to use a processor It was like you would process paper, film, and things like that. But forget about that. This is going to be a story about that. But I said, no, look, I know this company because I met the president at one of these things, and I had gotten, so I had a connect. I called the guy on the phone because they were one of these things to move, we're trying to like get people become aware of these things because people just didn't even know they existed. And printers and people, high-end graphic artists were the primary market, or companies that wanted to produce their own stuff. So I was trying to explain, I said, you understand, we could get a Mac, all right? I have all these, I came back because I was doing that stuff out in the West Coast. So I had, in my suitcase, with me, I had software, I had the fonts, I had all that stuff. I said, look, I've got all that stuff. You guys buy a Mac, all right? Give me an office space in your play. And they had a room upstairs, wasn't being used. And you buy one of these Laser Max 1200 DPI printers, and I will transform, this place. And I'll work for you, because I needed a job. I came from the West. I needed some income to get till I got myself set up. And so so I would take over their front end department, which normally would be like, the process of creating. In other words, in order to create a job, like, I don't know, it's something you get in the mail of this thing, all right, at a print shop. Well, someone's got to create that. Right? How do you create it? You create it on a machine. How did you create it before computers? It was a royal pain in the ass. It was like paste up, working with negatives, overlaying a type on a photo. I mean, it was a complicated process. So someone comes in for a job, right? Hey, we want this thing. And the printer would say, okay, we can have it for you in 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. And the guy's like, what? 2 or 3 weeks? I need to, I want to, right? But it wasn't like the print, and that's assuming the printer wasn't busy, right? With all kinds of other stuff. And so so I said, no, I said, look, you have no idea what I'm going to do. So spend the money. They had the money. I said, buy this thing, set me up. I'll use that office upstairs. I'll clean up that room. And they had some office up there that was just filled with junk. They had no reason for an office up in the second floor. They had their main office downstairs. They didn't know. It was like a room with a collection of shit. It took me a couple days to clean the room up. I had a desk in there, a phone, power. Ordered this equipment, set it up day one. Guy comes in with a stack of, in the business, we use job jackets. Let's see. I'll just flash this. This is like you see that piece of plastic? There's like, you could put your hand in there. Job jacket was the paper, the job order, right? And then anything like the photo that they might have wanted on that thing, like I showed you, the type, all the information. It was in a job jacket and had a number on it. This is really neat inside stuff. People don't know this. They still do this at print shops, by the way. And any kind of job shop, manufacturing. So the guy would come upstairs and he'd hand me a stack of them like this big in the morning once I had the office set up. I remember the first day he comes in and he like piles these things on my desk. And he's thinking, okay, it's going to be like, take a week. They wanted, the deal was, this is family. This is like family business, but still, families can be pricks sometimes. And they wanted me to punch the clock. People there punched a clock, like they had a time clock. And they said, everybody punches a clock here. you have to too. I said, no, I refuse. I said, I never punched a clock in my life or, and since I was a busboy when I was in high school at, some, piddly shit restaurant that I ended up walking off the job on, when I was 16, 17 years old or something. Excuse me. And, so finally they had no choice because I'm the type of guy. That's why, I think that's why these crazy ass dentist people, they can't stand a guy like a dynamic character. I said, no, I will not punch a clock. I will do my work. The thing is, I work faster than the average person. So I'm not going to sit here for 8 hours. I had that problem, that's why I say I left Columbia University years ago because I had organized the production department for their newspaper, law school journal, and all that stuff I was in charge of. And I had that department like running so smoothly that it only took me half a day of work. And I'd go and have lunch, and I'd go, New York used to have a movie theater on every corner. I'd watch a movie, and then I'd come back after a movie. I'd go watch a Woody Allen movie or something. And it was like a Woody Allen film. And then I'd come back to work, check on things, make sure everything, get ready for the next day, and go home. Otherwise, if I would have stayed there, I would have just been sitting there with my feet up on the desk. And I'm like one of those people that's like, I'm not a bureaucrat. Bureaucrats love that shit. They sit around, pretend they're doing something, talk, right? Talk to each other, shuffle papers, and pretend they're doing something. No, I run things like a fine-oiled machine. So this guy comes in. It's actually my uncle. He comes in and he puts a stack of stuff on on my desk, right? And he goes over a couple of them because there's like some of them had some specific things that were like, maybe semi-complicated. And I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, no problem. And he's thinking, that'll be my week's work, right? Because these people had no idea. They'd never seen a desktop publishing system. And from his mind, all it was I was staring, I had a monitor, this tiny computer, and over on the other side of the room, I had on a little table this Laser Max, which was really not that big a machine. It was a really incredible device. I mean, if I was producing stuff, I don't know if they're still in business. I mean, there's no reason for them to be in business. Let me just check real quick. I'm just curious. New window. Let's see. Laser Max. You're not seeing this, but let's just see. Laser Max, the world's most No, it's some kind of they don't even exist. I don't think they exist anymore. It was like a site for a gun, Laser Max. Yeah. But this company was called Laser Max back then. And it was a laser printer. And it was on the other side of the room. It just looked like a laser printer. So I take the first job jacket, open up. I had one of these things. I have one. I have one here somewhere. Well, my book. See my book up there? It's leaning on this plastic thing. You see, like there's like a piece of it's like the book is leaning on something. So you set your job there. And I told you before, I took typing in high school just as a gag. It was like the only two guys, me and some other guy, took typing in high school. So we could type. So I could do this. I could be looking like this and typing. So I typed really fast. So I set up this thing on the left, the text portion of whatever the job was, and I would type that in, and I could type that in a matter of a couple of minutes. Then I think I had a scanner too. I forgot to mention that, a flatbed scanner. So I could scan in a photo if need be. Though we still had a dark room in there, and there was a guy who used a camera, because he would photograph these things. And so if it was a photo, they would add that in right before because you took a negative and you burned that onto a printing plate, and then that plate was put on a cylinder and a printing press, and then that's how the printing went through. That's the printing process. That's offset printing. It's still the same today. Hasn't changed. Though there is direct to plate now, where you could, and then of course there's digital printing, which means it's like the whole thing has gone back to what the setup I had. It's just in color and high res, super high res. So anyway, to make a long story short, I went through that stack. I went in at 8 o'clock. I used to go in at 8. I think they opened at 8. I went in at 8 in the morning. I always given a guy gets up early, even if I drank, because I drink early. I was, or plus it didn't matter. I was never really a hungover type of guy. Unless I, did some kind of crazy shots or something. Anyway, but I used to drink, I used to go to happy hours after work every day almost, or whenever I could. That was my thing. I liked beer drinking, used to. And so I got through that by 10 o'clock. I had gone through the entire stack. And I was over at the, in the next the department, so to speak, with the guy who does the camera work, going over, showing, the stuff that came out that he had a photograph, and I'm explaining it to him. And he's like, wow, this is easy, right? And, no paste up, no nothing. Everything was like, and the fonts were cool. And, and then if it was something like this, where you see how it's upside down because it folds, right? So in other words, the artwork I gave him was like that, in other words, the bottom part was already upside down. So he had to do nothing, right? But photograph it, put it on negative, and then that negative would be burned to a plate and go right to the press. And so I go to my uncle or whatever, or whoever it was at the time. Is there anything, you got anything else? And he's like, what? You done all? Yeah. And there might have been one or two things. So I did a couple of quick things. I farted around in the office, made a couple phone calls. And at noon, I left. And I was done for the day. And it was like, and I wasn't punching the clock. And that's how my life was. And it was like, yeah, and so I used to go in the mornings, I'd do my work. And so later on, as I got to know more people and do more things, I wouldn't go in till like 10, because I was going out at night, and stuff. And so, yeah. And I just work for a few hours and, maybe through lunch. And 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I'd be leaving. And I'd go straight to the bar down the street. And I'd be the first guy at the bar when they opened up, like if they opened at 3. And that was the place where all the professionals hung out, like the lawyers and business people and stuff like that. I met all these interesting people at that place. I used to go to happy hours there. Anyway, just a little quick Tony Caravan story. Anyway, but they've changed, but life's changed, obviously, so, and that's the idea of the title card of this, which is goofy enough as like, this looks like some old fashioned type of thing, but I mean, and yeah, that kid is like, either the dad or the son is, the dad is either the serial killer or the son is the future serial killer. So anyway, but times have changed, and technology's changed. And they've really screwed it up. They've really screwed it up. And we've talked about technology and all that stuff before. I'm not going to keep this thing up too long because, I think the skull and the candle is kind of more appropriate than the title card, But, Lon Chaney on there is kind of cool. But enough of that. Yeah, and so music, albums gone, right? And, and just for the sake of it, because I keep thinking, I got one of these catalogs in the mail, and, they have these cheaper things you can buy, these vinyl players, but they're just not good. It's like, if I were to get into it, that's what I trying to say. It's either for somebody, it's either for an audiophile who has been in the same place for a very long time and has all this stuff and a collection of stuff. And the problem is I've moved around the country so many times, right? Lived in New York, LA, DC, Philly, everywhere. I've been across both oceans and State College and my old Pottsville, Yingling Brewery town, and, everywhere. And so, along the way, you just lose things. And when you're leaving with stuff that you could carry or fits in your vehicle or whatever, and you give stuff away. Like, I gave most of my film equipment away when I left LA to a friend of mine, a filmmaker. And it's the same with the audio stuff. It's like I gave a stereo receiver, speakers. I couldn't haul this stuff around with me. And that's the thing of moving. And especially like when I came east, I flew from LA. I sold my car in LA and I flew back. So I flew with like an Army duffel bag, which is big. And it's amazing the amount of stuff I got in that duffel bag. I think I might have had maybe a backpack too, carry-on backpack. But it was like I had everything in every Army duffel bag, So you can imagine, I lost so I basically lost everything, I mean, furniture, dishes, weird shit, and it's like the same with New York, when I left New York. I look at pictures because, I have some pictures, some photos somehow I, accumulated, though I lost most of the stuff because we didn't have cell phones in those days. So unless someone took a picture with a camera and I happen to get a copy of it, these things don't exist, My coffee is now colder than room temperature, violation of the law of physics, right? It's not possible. But half the things that have been happening to me lately just don't seem possible. Like, this is, when I say surrealistic nightmare, I was looking at this tooth of mine that we've been talking about. And I have one of those dentist, it's like a thing about yay long with a round mirror on it. You put it in the mouth and that way you can see up, under the tooth or whatever. The thing the dentist uses, And that tooth is in really bad shape. But it doesn't hurt right now. And I stopped taking pain medicine, Though, if I touch like here, there's feels kind of a little sensitivity. So I don't know if there is some infection that got up to this point, and that's why I'm on this amoxicillin or not. I don't know, I had some legal advice. And one person said that maybe that dentist is afraid that they couldn't do the job. And they were afraid of a lawsuit, or something. If they screwed it up and the infection got into my sinuses and I died or I had some serious complication. And I was looking at the thing this morning and I'm going like, you know what? I've got a list of a couple of dentists. I don't know if they're like people that do extractions or not. But I noticed I'm half thinking maybe that, this woman, which was false advertising because on their website it says extractions. So you can add that to the list of like violation of the, Hippocratic Oath, right? Help the patient and do no harm. And obviously they didn't help the patient and they did harm, because the cleaning thing, my teeth are kind of, they shouldn't have done what they did. That was like, and it was against my will, really. They were leading me on, and, that they were going to do this thing. And then when they were done, they just like hid and closed the door. And gave me this distant appointment. And I think they had no intention of ever doing it. I think she was scared to do it. So I don't know what to do about that. And like I say, it's kind of too gross to really show you. But the tooth is it's weird. It's a bad tooth. And I was right and I originally made the appointment because I knew it was a bad tooth and I knew it needed to be pulled. And the oral surgeon the one guy in town who can do the job, that I would trust, like wholeheartedly. I mean, he is the oral surgeon. He has 3 locations, is booked into January. And I don't know if I could survive. I don't know if I could survive till January. Like, I would probably have to go back on amoxicillin. I'm going to make a couple calls Monday to some of these people, but I'm going to stress to them. And, doctors, professionals get insulted. See, I don't get insulted when someone questions me. Like, if someone says to me, like, say they want me to do I do many things, right? So, I've published magazines, I've created websites, I've managed radio. I'm not tooting my horn here. I'm just trying to put in perspective so you understand. So if someone comes to me for something that I know how to do, and they ask a question, or they are, maybe a little skeptical or just inquisitive to the point of saying, hey, are you sure, this is real important to me. Are you sure that you can, do this, produce this the way, my boss wants it, or we need it? Well, I'm not insulted. You know what I mean? They don't know me. They don't know my capabilities. And I'll say, I'll tell them, or show them a sample of something I've done or something. I don't do this anymore. But I mean, I would, be honest with them. I go, yeah. Or in some instance, I would say, it's a challenge. I believe I can do it, but it's going to be challenging. I once did a website for I had somebody come in one time. I did some really crazy stuff when I used to be the creative director of an ad agency, because the type of clients that would walk through the door, some of them would have really outrageous requests. And I had one that wanted a company that basically had, they were the people that would do sign language at events, for deaf people in the audience. It's like you see on TV, you'll see somebody signing, and sometimes it's on the side. But a lot of times events. And this person had done the main principal had done this for presidents of the United States and stuff like that. Like they were, they were one of the premier sign language companies, type of people you would contract if you were doing that. And it was like anywhere from politicians to businessmen to whatever, at live events or, televised events, whatever. And they wanted a website, that showed their services, about us, the usual nonsense. And I'm like, and I had and this was very challenging. So they not only wanted, I had to set up a photo studio to take photo portraits of all of their people, because they had a pretty big staff. So I had to do this professional photography portrait studio stuff, which I didn't normally do. I mean, I'm a photographer and I'm capable of doing, taking a good picture, but I wasn't a portrait photographer. But I needed to do that because they wanted a page of portraits of their principals, and they wanted them as, to look as if they were professional portrait photography. So that was part of the job. And then there were, all these other demands for this website, interactive things they wanted. And they wanted people to be able to like forms and different stuff. But the most craziest thing they wanted is they wanted what we used to call a splash page. You don't see that anymore. The internet used to be kind of cooler in the 90s. And so the one woman says, while I'm meeting with them at this conference table, right, they're in my place, says, could we have one of the, she didn't use the word splash page, but she said, well, you know how they have this big page begins. Could we have a page where there's just, when you first go to the website, there's someone signing, on there. And they would have somebody signing this, doing sign language, they call it signing, like an introduction to the website. It was just a short signing thing, but they wanted the screen to be black and just see the hands. Oh, and they wanted me to create a logo too. And the logo was based on using like the hand graphics. So the name of the company was in the first letters. There were like 3 hands would be the first. It was like out of this world. So I did a movie of somebody signing, and then I had to do these effects to take rid of the background and just have the hands lit and all this stuff, and then create this splash page using like JavaScript or something weird like that. And I remember this whole thing. And I had them come in, schedule appointments, and took these portraits of these individuals, with this background I set up and the proper lighting. Like I say, this was... But the point is, people would come to me and I would, in that instance, I pulled it off. But I was honest with them out front. I said, no, I've never done a sign, type of thing. But the website was really cool when it was finished. And I used to enjoy being challenged like that. But see, some professionals, when you go to them and you question them, like if I call one of these other dentists up and say, look, this tooth's in pretty bad shape. In fact, it's one part of it is hanging down, but the part where the metal piece came out, I don't know where there's anything to grip on that side. And I think this is what scared this woman, and I think this is the part of the game that she's playing. I think she was afraid to do it, and she just didn't want to admit it. I mean, at least I'm thinking that. Or was afraid she would screw up and fuck me up, and that I would die, right? Or have some major complications, crack my jaw or something. You have to sign all kinds of weird papers when you do this kind of stuff. And I've known people, dental people like don't take dental seriously. Like I knew a millionaire near here because who I had met. In fact, I met literally a week before he died from like a root canal. And I had a cousin that died from a root canal. So that's why one of the reasons I never get a root canal. Though this tooth is beyond root canaling. And so you can't mess around with it, because what happens is the jaw and the sinuses and stuff, and like I say, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just telling you what I've been told, and this is firsthand experience. This isn't like, these aren't anecdotes from, somewhere on the internet or something. Secondhand or thirdhand stories. But it's serious. You could die, from if something goes awry. All right, in the mouth. So when you have someone doing an extraction and or some kind of gum related surgery or root canal, things of those natures, you want to make sure that they are have done multiple ones, are confident and are are trained and capable and have the equipment to do it, and are prepared that if something goes wrong, like the surgeon, when I had the last time I had a tooth extracted, like I said, I had a tooth extracted before. I signed papers and stuff, and it was a clean thing. It was bang. I was lucky. But that tooth wasn't in as bad a shape as this one. This one was screwed up because this was mostly metal. A freaking dentist that did this originally. So the metal fell out, and there's nothing, and it's like the metal was most of the tooth. I don't know what that fucking guy did, but so I got that hanging over my head. So I have to ask these guys up front, and some professionals are very insulted by that, And the point is, the matter is, look, man, this is my life. I don't want to play game. Don't say you can do an extraction unless you say, I've done, hundreds of extractions. Because these guys, these names that I've got are just dentists. I don't even know I don't even think they have websites. So, that's the thing. So I have to make a decision this week. This is, like I say, when I get into these things, it's like.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
It's Halloween.
But I have to make that decision. It's a personal decision. And I will be talking to my doctor. So if I'm not confident when I talk to these various, I have like 4 names of dentists. If I'm not confident talking to them that they give me the vibe, that they assure me, say, oh, I've done hundreds of these things. All right. Bad teeth, half of a tooth. Yeah, no problem. If I feel confident enough, I'll make an appointment. That's assuming like any dent. See, the problem with making any kind of appointment now, because of this thing that's now going on for over 2 years, which is really ridiculous, because that defies the laws of virology, right? They don't last over 2.5 years, and it has nothing to do with variants and all that kind of stuff. The stuff simply doesn't. Either somebody's releasing, they're systematically releasing this in major areas to keep this thing going, this bioweapon, or or it's just a scam. Watch YouTube. There's some interesting stuff on YouTube by from interesting people about the amount of money that's being made on this thing. The billions and billions and billions of dollars. But because of this thing, whatever you think of, and who knows, right? Like I say, I'm not going to pretend to know what it is. It's just fishy. If I just say to me, it's very fishy. Because of that, there's this backlog of things for people who would go to places like dentists, optometrists, outpatient services of all kinds, right? Because they've been locked down or they've had these problems. So when you try to make an appointment, everything's booked, And so this real oral surgeon, man, this guy's booked till January. So if I don't trust these dentists, if they say, oh, we don't do extractions, or I've only done a couple of them, then I'm going to have to try to go back to my former dentist who is an oral surgeon, and book this thing for January. See if I can get in January. And I have to talk to my personal doctor about this amoxicillin thing that I'm taking, and saying, how long will that last? And will you be able to, if it's going to wear off in 3 weeks or something like that, can you prescribe me with give me another prescription of it to get me through, to keep me going till January? You see? So I don't keel over from some sinusitis or some kind of infection in my sinuses or gums or something that, for some other reason too, like gingivitis, which I don't have, but bad cases of gingivitis and things like that can affect your pancreas. I didn't even know that. And people can get pancreatic cancer or some kind of problems with their pancreas because of their gums, their teeth. So it's like you don't realize your mouth, you know, it's like it's amazing the interconnections of certain things in your body. But the mouth particularly, you know, does, you know, you're talking affecting your sinuses, your pancreas, right? And then your blood just in general, you know, and infections that, you know, could kill you, right? I mean, who would think a guy would go into a dentist and be dead in 2 days? And I know two personal situations like that from root canal. And the one guy was like a millionaire, so I'm sure he went to like a very, you know, high-end dentist. Like it wasn't like he went to some, you know, went to Mexico, you know, to have a tooth, to have a thing, right? He was a millionaire, you know, and he wasn't that old. He was older, you know, but he wasn't like 80 or even, you know, like, I mean, or something like that. So anyway, that's that. I don't want to talk about that anymore. That's kind of scary.
At this point, there is no really authentic way for us to say who or what to look for and guard yourself against. Misshapen monsters. Reaction of law enforcement officials is one of complete bewilderment at this hour. So far, we have been unable to determine that
He was such a nice boy.
You should have handled him more carefully.
Who?
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers.
Yeah, he was the guy that was after you.
In the Myers house? That little kid who killed his sister?
Yeah.
But he's in a hospital somewhere.
He escaped last night.
How do you know?
It's all over the radio. Television, too. It's on right now.
Why me?
Why me?
It's Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween, man. So, you know, people get into that stuff. It's like there's all these Halloween movies and stuff. I was never a big horror person. I just was watching this. They have a series. I'm not sure if it's Amazon Prime or Netflix, because I have like a bunch of those things, right? Well, I have Amazon Prime because the shipping. I basically was ordering a lot of stuff from Amazon, and it's worth it. And you get Amazon Prime video, movie, whatever with it. And I did the low, simple Netflix cheapo thing because I was watching some series. So right now I have I have Apple TV, the $4.97 thing, because I was watching that C, and I've been watching The Foundation, which they're not doing a really good job of that. That's an Isaac Asimov thing. And there's a thing called Invasion on there, which is very slow moving. And of course they have their morning show thing on there too. So Apple actually has a couple of programs. So for $5, I figure, and you could quit. So for $5, I figure I'll do it for maybe another month, because these series will end by then. And it's the same with Netflix and his HBO thing. I've been watching some, what's his Doom Patrol. And that thing's going to end soon too. If it hasn't already, I have to double check. And I'm going to try to cancel out of that hopefully. But anyway, so right now I have like a few of these pay things, like the bottom level discounted, whatever. And so I was watching I Know What You Did Last Summer. They turned that into a series. And I'm not sure if that's completely over or not yet either. I mean, it's a blur because, I watch so much of this. This is what I watch. I don't watch TV news. I don't watch sports. I'm not into any of that crap. So this is what I do. I turn on YouTube. I watch my own stuff. And I watch and I get caught up in some of these shows. So sometimes it all blurs together. But even that, is like kind of semi-horror, but at least there's, it's like, it's not that good, but it's something I got myself watching. But, there are a ton of horror. If I was into horror, they've got the entire Halloween series you could watch movie-wise. They've got all these other horror shows. I mean, it's crazy the amount of stuff. But they just don't do anything to me. So I guess for people who are into horror, this weekend or this month has been like crazy for them, like crazy great. But for me, I'm like, there's nothing to watch except a couple of shows. It's like people who are into sports. It's like, even on Amazon Prime, they have Thursday Night Live football and all this kind of weird shit and stuff. And it's like, I have no interest in that. So when I say to people, there's nothing on, man, it's like I'm bored. I wish I could, just feel like drinking, or something. And it's like, people look at you like, well, there's so much on, in their minds. But it's just like, for me, it's like, nah. See, when you have a mind, I like mine, which is like, I need a stimulation and a certain kind of thing, like a thriller that's, it's gotta really like grab me and hold me into it. And, there's got to be some good writing there and a certain amount of sophistication. It's, that in other words, this, suspension of disbelief, they call it. All right. When you're watching a movie or a TV show, particularly something that's sci-fi or, that, or in that type of thing. That has to be you have to be able to have suspension of disbelief. But if you're watching something and you're going, come on, this is ridiculous. Well, there's no suspension of disbelief, and therefore you can't immerse yourself into the movie or TV show. And I notice that a lot of these things that I look at, I'm just going, doesn't work. It's not working. And it's not so much, it's just bad writing and bad directing, I mean, in many of the cases, the technology, the special effects, the crews, and everything are excellent, but it's just, or a lot of these stations now, or these channels, pay channels, have their own produced stuff. Like Amazon produces stuff, Netflix produces stuff, And so it's like, they're almost like college film type things. And the acting is just not really up to snuff. And I don't know if it's just because they have shitty directors who don't know how to, get out of an actor, the best performance, or if for some reason they just hire these rank actors, pay them, union scale, and and the same with the director. They just got some director on salary or something. I don't know, but it's like pretty crappy. And it's not as if like when you're fresh out of the business, like when I was out of, well, I had a technical direct television one point. All right. And the technical director is the person that's basically says, and I may or may not have done, I think I'd said this once on a show, but people might have missed it. It's like, you're the one that's talking into people's headsets on the floor. Right. It doesn't matter if it's a newscast, whether, or a production. All right. You're the one going, so in front of you are all the are monitors of all the cameras. Okay. So say it's a 3-camera setup. So you have there's 4 monitors. Camera 1, camera 2, camera 3, and then what what's going over the air or, going to tape, whatever. And that's in front of you. And you've got a person sitting there. All right. Tech. And then you have the three people on the floor and on the floor. They all got headsets on. All right. And they're all behind camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. And then you've got somebody on the floor. They've got a headset on. All right. And that person is basically, and then of course, if it's a television, like a show or something, the people that are on the stage or behind the desk or whatever, they have earpieces in. Right. So everyone, can hear you. All right. And so what people can, you can shut out certain things. And there's, and it depends on what the production is, right? Whether it's live or it's the news or it's something else. You may have more or less. Never less, but more people. And so I was at one point where I would be like, okay. And you kind of whisper in their ears. And you're like, all right, camera 1, pan to the right a little bit. And I could see everything like right in front of me. Camera 2, go in for a 2 shot. Right? All right. Now, camera 3 is probably is a close-up of the person speaking right now, for example. So that's the one that's coming over the live feed. Right? So then I would go, so camera 2 gets into the 2 shot. All right. Camera 1, pan to the right. Get a close-up on, the other person, whoever it is. All right. And so then I would say, okay, cut to camera 1. All right. Camera 3, stay on the close-up. All right. Now cut to camera 2, which is like the 2 shot. Right, back up. Camera 1, pull back. I want to the full set. Right. In the right time. Okay, cut to camera 1. And so you're there like, that's what you're doing. That's all you're doing. And it's crazy. And it's like you're an air traffic fucking controller, especially when it's live. Right? Because if you have sound or if you have to pull in a tape or something else, right, from somewhere else, or do something or cut to something, it's insanity. And so even if it's just a half-hour fucking show or an hour show, when you're done that, you're like, I need a drink, right? Because that's all you're doing, because what goes over, it's like you're positioning the cameras, positioning the people, telling the person, you've got teleprompters, make sure this is on that. Don't read, that script, cut that out. Okay. And so it's insanity. So after I did that, right, for a while, when I would turn on TV, when I would watch TV at home, I couldn't watch fucking TV because all I was seeing was camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. It was like I couldn't focus on a freaking show. I couldn't even watch the nightly fucking news. You know what I mean? Because in my mind, I was in that, I was the technical director. I was in that room and I was seeing, it was all camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. And, and it was crazy. And I'll tell you, it took about 6 months to get that shit out of my head. I could not watch TV. It was like annoying, but that's not like what these movies are. That's different than these movies now. These movies are just piss poor crap. So, I like sci-fi, and there's definitely a lot of sci-fi on Amazon Prime, Netflix, and, whatever, Apple and stuff. But they're just like poor acting, bad directing, it's just piss poor, filmmaking. But the CGI, the effects, the sets, right, are like out of this world. You know, they've got spaceships doing this, sets that look so authentic, right? Right, even the costumes, everything. And then the moment the actress or the actor opens their mouth, it's like a fucking student film, first year student film. And you're going, oh, fuck this. You can't, you know, when you watch these movies, you know, there's like a red line or whatever it is that shows like where you watch something if you go back and resume play. You know what I'm talking about? And you can't imagine how many things are across like watch again or, resume, whatever. There's one list that, you know, of things you've watched and how many things that have like the white or red line. It's just like, you know, that far from the beginning because I've like the moment somebody opened their mouth, you know, I got into the whole thing. Everything was really cool. The intro, the title sequence, everything was perfect. And then the moment they start opening their mouth and talking, I'm going, holy shit, you got to be fucking kidding me. This is, you know, I've seen student films better than this. So that sucks. But people are watching the things. You know, you see like what's trending, right? Or what's popular now. You know, they all have that, you know, a row of something like that. And you look at it and go like, people are actually watching that? This is number one in the country, you know, on Netflix. It's like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Yeah, it's sick. But that's it. And that's what I was trying to say with this title card. You know, just using the pumpkin in the holiday, you know, whatever.
It's Halloween.
But times have changed, definitely. And for some, you know. Like I say, that Dune thing I watched was, you know, it was pretty good. Like I say, it was a little slow going. I'm just disappointed that it was part one. And I don't know, you know, when is part two going to be next year or something? Or is part two coming out in December or January or something? I don't get it. It's an HBO Max film. And it says in theaters and available through November 21st on HBO Max. So I don't know what the story is. But, you know, by the time that it got into the end, it's like, yeah, I want to see it because I know the story Dune. This is like the third remake, at least, of Dune. And, you know, I know the story, but even this is one of those instances where even knowing the story, I was anxious to see, you know, the progression into the end, you know, part two. Yeah, disappointing. But I did watch that yesterday. But yeah, this two things is a pain in the ass, and it's it's a pain in the mouth, and it's still there. It's still bothering me. Kind of, I'm conscious of it, and it's not painful. Like I say, I'm not taking pain pills because I don't want to further fuck up these pain pills fuck up your liver and kidneys, and you know, you save them for when you need them, you know. That's the thing. Like I've never been, you know, and I, like I said, I had a kidney operation. I mean, it was just blasting a kidney stone and stuff like that. But I mean, there were multiple attempts at it. So 3 times they were like, had to go in. So it's like, you know, I got through that and my kidney function was normal last blood test. Then I had like my liver was shut really off because I was popping Tylenols when this thing first like flared up and stuff. And I was popping a lot of just Tylenols then. Like I have prescription stuff now I could take. But it's not that I don't feel a need for it and I don't want them. But just those Tylenols had taken like, I think they call it AST and AD something or other. Those levels were basically almost showing like liver failure. And I went to the emergency room because I was having all this pain and shit, you know. This is like 2 months ago, a couple of months ago. And they even kept me in there. Like, of course, that was amateur hour down there too. Like I'm saying, the medical profession, some of these hospitals are kiddie city. There's nobody in there experienced. The experienced nurses have left, have quit. The ones and the interns who are coming in fresh out of medical school, well, they don't know anything, right? They just, they usually rely on those 20-year veteran nurses and stuff in the ERs and stuff to like walk them through. That's their whole purpose of interning. So if you go to a hospital, this is, again, I'm no medical profession, but I'm just saying, from my experience, don't go if you're sick, go to the emergency room, call an ambulance, 911, by all means, if you're ill. I'm not telling you not to do that. But if you have an option, you want to go at a time, because they give the interns the graveyard shifts, right? You want to go in the daytime when there's like real, like the professionals are there. Because I went there and it was kiddie city. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. But at least they knew enough to keep me in because they saw the levels. I mean, book levels. They go, this guy's kid. They said, look, we're going to have to keep you here for a couple more hours to see if those, take your blood test again in like 2 or 3 hours to make sure those liver numbers come up. And then luckily they did. Because the liver will heal itself. That's what a lot of people don't know. The liver is one of those things that will heal itself. So you don't want to abuse it. But things like Tylenol and ibuprofen and stuff like that, and of course some of the heavier ones, they will totally screw up your liver. Way more than alcohol and stuff. I mean, unless you're drinking a fifth of liquor a day or something. But yeah, those pills. So, and that's why these people die, they say they die of overdoses and stuff like that, whatever. But, how many people are like on the list of the died from the thing because actually they just had taken too many pain pills or something weird like that. And that's what I say about it. These drugs, I think this is just my personal opinion. That's why I'm against the FDA, because there's so many drugs that they've done, is that, geez, I'm over 2 hours here. I didn't realize this. I got to end this thing. I think they should all be prescription, Anyway, thanks for watching. And thanks, for nothing.
Good morning.
Get my book, as I always say. It's winter time's coming around the corner. The power's going to go out. Great solar stuff. It's not just solar stuff on there. It's also power packs that you could charge from your house, your car, or the sun. And, of course, Freedom is Fun shirt. I've got You Don't Know What You Don't Know. Everything you know is wrong, game over. I've got where. Go to one of my websites, TonyCaravanLive.com, ROCKFLUX.com. It's the same site. Or TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. Join Locals. They just merged with Rumble. Rumble bought them out, actually. So there might be some interesting things happening there. And if I ever get taken off of this platform, I'll be doing live broadcast on Locals. So, you should, get a Locals account. I have a Rumble. I set myself up for Rumble, but I don't like Rumble, and I hope they don't do it to Locals. It's too much of a pay to play thing there. I'm not too crazy about that. But anyway, that's where I am, what I am, and it's Halloween.